Top shelf classic lager, brewed using only the finest noble hops and Canadian malt. This crisp and refreshing lager aims high and scores big. From Lake Bay's Brewing Company in partnership with the NHL Alumni Association. Available at the LCBO and the beer store.
You're listening to Life After the Game, brought to you by Gong Show Gear, the show that profiles former NHL players on their playing days and current lives after hockey. Here's your host, Darcy Lynch.
My guest today is Matt Barnaby. Played over 800 NHL games for 7 NHL teams, the majority with the Sabres, Penguins, and Rangers. And a friend of mine from way back who I haven't caught up with in a long time. So happy to have him on the show. Welcome to the show, Barney.
Darcy, thank you. It's been a long time coming, so I'm glad we're able to do this. I'm real excited to do the interview.
No conversation about the Sabres from the era you played is complete without bringing up Dominik Hasek, and a lot of your former friends and teammates have been on and shared some of their experiences with them, like Jay McKee and your friend Rob Ray. But there was a lot written and said about your relationship with Dominik whenever you played with them, and I know firsthand that you have the utmost respect for him as a player, but when you look back on your time playing with Dom in Buffalo, just share some of the experiences and what he brought to the team at that time.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most dominating player that I've ever played with. What he did for our Sabres teams, between the years of really 93 to 99 when I was traded was incredible. I don't think there's a guy that's dominated a position more than Dominik Hasek in goal, and it gave us a chance to win every single night. And recently he was inducted to the Hall of Fame, and his jersey was retired by the Buffalo Sabres, and deservedly so. He was that good a player, and he meant that much to Buffalo sports, and especially the Buffalo Sabres. But, as a person, I didn't get along with him all that much. I think our personalities maybe clashed. I thought, just the way that he was off the ice was maybe a little bit different than the respect I had for him on the ice. But all in all, he deserves all the accolades that he gets. He was that good a goalie.
This is Life After the Game, brought to you by Gong Show Gear. This week's guest is former NHLer Matt Barnaby. And you made reference to being traded in 99, Matt. And that was when you moved on to the Penguins, and you were there for parts of 3 seasons. What was it like when Mario Lemieux made his return in 2000, and you were already part of the team, and then all of a sudden to have Mario Lemieux in the locker room with the team?
Yeah, one of the more remarkable things that I've seen, I remember when he was getting close, and we had heard rumblings, and then he came back, and we were just thrilled to have the chance to play with one of the best of all time, and with his stature and being a part owner at the time. So it was weird, it was fun, it was cool, it was all of the above. But to watch the way he brought himself back into the lineup and trained to get back, and he wasn't coming back just to be a fourth liner. He's coming back to be a presence. It was an amazing time for me to watch. A guy that I idolized growing up. I think most hockey players from Canada, Gretzky and Lemieux were synonymous with greatness. So to have the chance to play with them, call him a friend, and really watch how an elite superstar really puts the work into his craft to be better. Was pretty remarkable, especially what he came back from the cancer to the back problems, everything, all the ailments that he had. He still had a desire to come back and play and help our team win. So it was pretty remarkable watching his first game and putting up 4 points against the Toronto Maple Leafs was pretty impressive.
Yeah, certainly a very memorable game that one was. And after Pittsburgh, you had a similar tenure with the Rangers, about the same length of time, around 3 seasons. And it was such a star-studded roster. You were talking about the players that you watched growing up, and then there was so many big names on those Rangers teams. What do you think the biggest factor was on why you guys couldn't get over the hump and get into the playoffs whenever you were in New York?
I'd say coaching. And goaltending. I think when we look at our goaltending, we had Mike Richter, who was at the end of his career, and I thought he did a good job. I thought once that left, we were between Dan Blackburn and a Mike Dunham, who had their struggles in New York and didn't give us the goaltending that I thought we needed. We were star-studded for sure with the likes of Lindros and Nedved and Bure and Kovalev. I think you can add in Yager. We had so many great players, but I don't know if we had enough role players. I don't know if there was enough ice time to go around for all the stars that are accustomed to playing 21, 22 minutes and now are playing 15 and 16 minutes. So I think it comes back to coaching, accountability. I don't think we were a very accountable team from when I look back and I see what it takes for championship teams and successful teams. You really have to have a team-first mentality, and I thought we were more of an individual team that had great parts to it, but not a real team.
And speaking of star-studded teams, you were also part of the Colorado Avalanche briefly when you were traded there at the trade deadline in 2004, and that was a very strong team. There was high expectations all season that they were expected to be a top contender for the Stanley Cup. So when you got word that you were going there at the deadline, were you pretty confident that going into those playoffs that you thought you were going to probably get your best crack at the Cup?
Yeah, I mean, people ask me if I thought we would win the Stanley Cup, and that's it's so hard to win. There's so many great teams that have the opportunity, but I really thought I had a great opportunity to really. It was the first team that I was really on that I really thought we had a chance to win a Stanley Cup. And when you look at Paul Kariya and Teemu Selanne, who was hurt a lot while I was there, Rob Blake and Joe Sakic, we had so many great pieces. And people say a lot about our goaltending and David Abisher. I thought he was okay. I don't blame him for it. I think as a team we underachieved in the second round. We took out Dallas very, very easily, and then we played a San Jose team that was tough. They were a tough team to beat. They had a lot of different pieces. We tried to intimidate them physically at times, and they responded. But to have the chance to play with those guys and learn again from some of the best that ever played the game was certainly a treat. I wish we would have went further. I wish we would have won a Stanley Cup together. But I took a lot of good and a lot of great memories from not only the play, treat people was certainly first class.
And speaking of the Stanley Cup, one of your former teams has went on to win 2 cups recently, and that, of course, is the Chicago Blackhawks, where you played after the 2004 lockout. And some of the players that you played with there went on to have the success and still be part of the Chicago roster. And when you look at players like Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook, they're both rookies whenever you played with them. And they both had very successful junior careers, but could you tell at the time that they had all the hallmarks to be very successful defensemen long-term in the league?
Yeah, the maturity that they brought, and first thing that stuck out from Duncan Keith from a training camp and his exhibition game, I remember looking at him and go, you got to show one here. This kid could win Norris trophies in the future because he was so quick, he was so dynamic. He had all the tools that you knew he could be great with, and didn't try to go end to end every single time. Brent Seabrook was different. He had that quality, but it's a maturing game, and he was really mature beyond his years. Just 2 great kids that you knew were very respectful of the older guys, were willing to put their time in, and you knew that they had those capabilities. And then we traded about a month into the season for Patrick Sharp, and that was another guy that we knew would be just an absolute stud. He had all the makings with his skating ability, his quick release, his knack for the net, and his hockey IQ.
And Matt, the last team that you played with in the NHL was Dallas, and you retired in 2007 due to concussions. Most important question I'm going to ask you today is, how's your health overall, and are there any effects from those concussions these days?
Yeah, I probably had 14 concussions while I played, and I think, I'm doing great. I mean, I think we look at all the things that happen. I think there is a lot of worry of what could happen in the future and dementia, all those things. Probably I never thought about them before, but the more and more that I see people that struggle with a lot of issues after the game and with issues with concussions, I'm certainly a little bit more cognizant of the effects that could happen. So I feel great. I think I get headaches probably more than the regular person. I'm probably a little bit, my memory, my short-term memory is probably a little less than the normal person. But all in all, I feel pretty good. I'm very fortunate to have a great support staff with my wife and my kids and great friends around me. But on a day-to-day basis, the only effects I really feel would be short-term memory and headaches more than the normal person. And knock on wood, hope that stays that way for a lot of years to come.
Well, I know that you're as busy in retirement as you were whenever you're still playing in the league, and you mentioned your kids. You're very involved with your son's hockey in the AAA system of the Buffalo Regals in the Buffalo area. And is coaching something that you're just as passionate about as you were whenever you were playing on the ice?
Yeah, I think I'm a better coach than I was a player. I think that's my my calling. It's a tough business to get into, but I really enjoy coaching the kids. And now that they're at 16 and pushing, on to college, onto the OHL, onto the USHL, you just want to see them succeed. But I have a great passion for it. I love breaking down video. I really love the emotional part of it. I love the structural part of it. I love the intricacies of line matching and everything that goes along with it at the youth level. And I'd like to one day, hopefully, take it to another level. My son's for prep school next year, and then probably on to the USHL, and hopefully for him on to college in a few years. And I now have the time to commit to another thing of mine that I have a passion for, and that's coaching. So as much as I love being an analyst, if I had to drop it all on a whim's notice and someone offered me a coaching job, whether it be in the USHL or OHL or QJ, certainly would be something that I would be very intrigued by and have to listen closely.
Well, and you're talking about your involvement with your own son's hockey, and as I said at the outset, that on a personal level, I've known you for several years, and knowing your family, and when you reflect back on your career, and so many do on this show and talk about things that they appreciate more once their playing days are over, you had a more challenging path to the NHL than a lot of other aspiring hockey players. And when you think back now and look at your career, could you speak to how instrumental your family was to your success?
But yeah, and you know them very well. I'm from a family that's not with a lot of extra money, so playing hockey as a kid was kind of my outlet. It's what I used as vacations. Was my outlet for really everything. And I was fortunate to have a brother that's 14 years older. I didn't have a dad growing up, so I had a brother that kind of acted as a father figure. I had a mother and a grandmother that were very, very supportive, but it was only all about hard work. And my brother certainly put in the hours. My mom put in the hours of driving and giving me every opportunity, whether it be equipment, whether it be playing in every single tournament. I never went without, no matter how expensive it was. And it's very expensive for those families and parents out there that do it now. It's a heck of a commitment. So I certainly wouldn't have made it to where I made it without a supporting family like I had. I'm appreciative probably a lot more now that I've hit the age of 40 and I have my own kids and see the sacrifices that you make for your kids. But I'm very lucky to have had the people in my life to get me to where I am.
You come from a salt-of-the-earth family, that's for sure. I can certainly speak to that. You're listening to Matthew Barnaby here on Life After the Game with Darcy Lynch. And you made reference earlier, Matthew, to the broadcasting that you're currently doing as an analyst. And you were known as certainly one of the most notorious or most effective trash talkers, whichever way you want to look at it, during your playing days. Given the amount of the mouthing that you and everything you did on the ice, did you always figure it would just be a natural that you'd get into broadcasting in some form whenever your playing days were done?
Yeah, I never really thought about it till really my last year, maybe my last couple years. I committed myself to being the best player I could be. I put all my focus into hockey. I never really thought about other things while I was playing except for hockey. As I got near the end, a couple people said that, you're a great interview. You love to talk. You love being in front of the camera. You'd be a natural. And I started taking some just interviews for free and doing some analyzing if my team didn't make the playoffs. And in Chicago, my second last year, I did a few things for a few networks and really enjoyed it. It gave me a chance to still watch the games, be relevant, in still being able to watch and stay involved in some capacity. At the same time, being able to spend a lot of time with my family when I was retired too. So that was important for me, that I got to watch a lot of my son's hockey, and being an analyst, I got to create a lot of my schedule. But yeah, it was a natural fit. I find it very easy to be on TV. I find it very easy to talk in front of a lot of people or be on the radio. But it does take a lot of time. You've got to watch a lot of games. I'm very opinionated. I'm very honest in my truth, whether it hurts people that I play with feelings or teams that I played for. The contradictory things that you might have to say to their fan base. So I try to be honest. I love it. It gives me a chance to stay in the game, like I said. And if you get to get paid and talk about hockey, it's a pretty good thing.
Matthew, one last question before we sign off. As I've mentioned, Gong Show Gear being the sponsor of this show, the lifestyle hockey apparel company that I know you're very familiar with. The Gong Show name itself comes up on this show often whenever talking about some of the craziest games that ever happened in the NHL, or when players are reflecting on some of the most out-of-hand games. And coincidentally, whenever players like Jason Woolley and Rob Ray and several other Sabres are talking about the Buffalo days, your name tends to come up in the same sentence as Gong Show quite a bit on there. So on the Gong Show theme, I'm just wondering, is there a game that stands out to you? There were several, and it probably dates back to the Sabres day, or maybe it was with one of your other teams that you still can't help but think but laugh of what went on that game, and whenever whether it was a line brawl or whatnot. And I'm sure one of the ones that you go to regularly on the YouTube clips, is there one that jumps out to you more than others?
Yeah, well, I know the Gong Show guys very well, and they put out a great product, great gear for people, and they truly are Gong Show guys, and I think I truly was a Gong Show player. So when I look back and I get asked about it more than anything, it has to be the Philadelphia Flyers. When I beat up Gar Snow after kind of maybe playing it up a little bit more than I had to about being hurt, but that game against Philadelphia where I fought Gar Snow and then I fought Rod Brindamore after certainly was the Gong Show moment of my career. That
particular incident, you might have a hard time getting a coaching gig with the Islanders these days.
That would be that would be tough. Yeah, I think the Islanders, there's a few teams that certainly would not touch me in any which way, and a few that goes for Junior too. For the people that I might have pissed off back in the day, it might be tough to work for their organizations. But hey, there's a lot of other teams I can work for.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, Matt. It's been great catching up with you, and hopefully we get together here soon and catch up even more.
Sounds good, buddy. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to Life After the Game, brought to you by Gong Show Gear, the premier manufacturer of lifestyle hockey apparel. Check them out at gongshowgear.com. Thanks to this week's guest, Matt Barnaby. I'm Darcy Lynch. You can follow the show on Twitter at Darcy P. Lynch.
Top shelf classic lager, brewed using only the finest noble hops and Canadian malt. This crisp and refreshing lager aims high and scores big. From Lake Bay's Brewing Company in partnership with the NHL Alumni Association. Available at the LCBO and the beer store.
Barnaby trying to hang on now. Now Lindros reaches out and kicks the legs out from underneath Barnaby. And Lindros has lost it, folks. He has lost it, and he's out of the game. He may be the best player in hockey today. Is Bush. Well, they're going to send him to the penalty box and not to the dressing room. So far.
Now, I said before this game started, Lindros has a mean streak in him, and we just saw it there. And he is frustrated, upset. Here's what I was talking about. And watch what Lindros does as he'll hook his right leg behind Barnaby and just kick his feet down to the ice. Or kick his feet out so that Barnaby goes down.
But you know what, partner? What goes around comes around. And don't you think that the Rat is going to forget that? Not as long as he plays in this game.
Now the Buffalo bench is giving it to Barnaby. And Rob Ray, of course, isn't helping matters. Now they're talking about the fight. I mean, that's... And Matt said, well, he should have...